I, oh, I should have closed the curtain. Oh, gonna cough up a hairball there, Mags? Maybe.
Here we go. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tooltip Tuesday.
Should have closed the curtain. Oh,
here we go.
A hairball there, Mags?
There we go. Okay. Yeah. So, hey, everybody. Tooltip Tuesday. How are you guys doing? Hi, Julia.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So, hi.
It's me, Julia, from Little Metal Foxes.
And me, Jennifer, also from Little Metal Foxes. So today we've got a tooltip for you that's pretty basic. I was
say that. I would say that this is an elegant and efficient tooltip. It is a very elegant solution to what is arguably a really difficult problem. And so just because something has a brilliantly simple solution doesn't mean that intrinsically it's worthless just because it's worthless, but that it's
it's invaluable. Yeah, once you know this trick for this, you'll never go back.
No.
No.
and you didn't have to show me. You just had to explain it to me, and I was like, "That is freaking brilliant!"
Oh yeah.
So
here's the thing. I was teaching the Bezels Made Easy class last weekend, and everybody was like, "How do you get that perfect margin inside the bezel?" Because there's always wandered, or they couldn't quite get it right, and getting that spacing. So it's hard to do, and if you don't know what you don't know, it's kind of tricky to get the right margin. And you can take a pen or you can take something and kind of trace around and get it fairly accurate. But I've got a way that I've been doing it for a while, and I had seen, I think Julier's Repost did something similar recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I use that tip like that, but instead I do mine a little bit differently. And so I thought I'd share that with you guys. It makes it way easier, and I'll show you the difference. And I've got another tip for bezels as well. So, you ready for this, Julia?
I am.
Okay.
The spirograph technique.
The spirograph technique.
I know. And you said that and explained it to me, and I was just like, I love it. It was so I was just like, this made my day.
Absolutely. So, let's see. I've got you as co-host, so you can control things and see stuff.
Co-host?
I think so.
I can't. I guess we can't spotlight when there are only two of us, right?
Oh, that's true.
I could come in with my phone, and then we could
spotlight. No, let me see if I can spotlight here.
You spotlight when there are just two of us?
I cannot.
I think when there are just two of us, we can't spotlight.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
There are a lot of claws.
There we go. Pop that on there.
So I come in.
There we go.
I'm not going to connect audio. No. Okay. Now you're going to
turn off that camera.
Turn that off.
There you go.
And
okay. So
then we're going to spotlight everyone.
There. Okay. So basically the problem for a lot of people is getting that bezel area right, because what ends up happening a lot of times is people will have a bezel that you cut out, and it's like, ooh, and you can get it kind of close to that edge, and then you're filing it and sanding it, and it's
a little bit.
Say what?
It was a little bit out of focus.
Yeah. So you can see it's like, I can get it pretty accurate, and I can clean that up, but sometimes it's a little off center, and that can make it a little hard. For a long time before I learned this trick, what I was doing was using dividers for this. And dividers are great. The problem with using dividers is that they have a tendency to kind of
have tried to use, and I struggle with exactly this, what you're about to show.
Right. So what happens when you're using dividers is, if you're going around in a circle, right? Even if you're kind of going around evenly, if you twist them or tweak them a little bit, it's going to give you an uneven line. And same true on the inside, because if you're kind of not turning the bezel, completely, or it's gonna, you're not going to get completely,
Yeah.
uh, equal measurement on your circle. So if you want to get that really super equal measurement, this is my trick. I will take just a jump ring. So if I want, just that perfect little circle on the inside, and this is where the spirograph technique comes in handy.
I love that
Um,
so much.
so if I want, like this is, I think, like 16 or 14 gauge jump ring that I've got. I think it's 14 gauge.
Yeah, it looks
So
like a 14.
that's going to give me a nice little, edge for my stone setting. So all I have to do is just take that, run it around, and that'll give me that perfect little edge. And I can do this on the outside too. So if I want to have like that perfect little measurement around the
Well,
outside,
and then as you readjust where your fingers are, because your fat fingers are in the way, the whole thing isn't twisting, the
right,
legs of the divider aren't twisting and getting off.
right.
And yeah, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, because the wire is the shape the wire is. So
Right.
even if it flips up or rolls around a little bit, you're still going to
Still
have
going to
that
be
that
14
lip.
gauge.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
So
So
smart.
yeah. So I think uh the tool tip repost, they were using a piece of curved wire and doing the
Yeah.
outside. But I have always found that a jump ring works better because it's less likely to, slip off and
Hmm.
go
Hmm.
off into the ether. So if I need to correct it or, shape something, it's just like spirograph your way around. And it's like something that I thought was centered pretty well. I can really see.
Can you get the focus a little tighter on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So you can really see that my circle is like off center.
Not centered, yeah.
Yeah.
But you
So
curve it.
now using the jump ring technique, just going around, it'll give me a
Paragraph
really
technique.
the spirograph technique.
I
It'll
like to
get
call
it
it that.
centered and equal distance all the way around. So for something like this one, where I really had to have a really narrow margin right there, using this technique because I've got a really very liquidy, water clear opal that's going
Mm.
in here,
Oh, wow.
cab.
Down.
That's a beautiful opal. Um, so this opal, I really wanted to make sure it was supported, but with the cab, it because it's a lens, it just disappears. And if the
Yeah.
background's too thick, you can see it. So this really eliminates that support from view from the front.
Nice.
And yeah, but gives me a nice, healthy border all the way around where it's nice and supported. Um, the other thing that I would tell you is that when you're making your bezels originally, one of my favorite tricks, especially if you're doing something that's not quite, and the other thing is if the thing's not round, people are like, oh well, um, I'll just use a template, just use something that's this, even if it's not completely round, you can
Doesn't
get
matter.
whatever shape it is, right?
Doesn't matter. Just conforms to the shape, which is so
Right. It's
really
hard to get into points for things like squares, but
cool.
you can kind of use dividers for that if you need to, because you're doing a straight line to a straight line. Or kind of, get that in there a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
But but what I also really recommend is if you're using like a fine silver bezel wire,
Mm-hmm.
anneal it before you wrap it around your stone.
Mm.
A lot of people don't do this. And the reason they're like, oh, it's fine silver, so it's nice and soft. And it does come off of the roll, pretty soft because it's dead soft, but it still has some memory, right? It still has a little bit of bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're trying to create your stone setting, it's still, and you can see it kind of like bounce open a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you just take a second and anneal this, it's much more compliant. So
Mm.
you go to cut or go to measure, you can get it to, completely fit around the stone without it wanting to like open back up on you.
Right.
Right.
Right. And
So,
since it's fine silver, annealing it, you don't run any risk because there's no copper in it.
right, right,
Any risk of having fire stain,
right,
those surface oxides. So it's like, as long as you don't melt it.
right. Yeah. Or fuse it together. And what I'll usually do is just use a nice low neutral flame, something kind of fluffy. And if you're worried about doing that, you can use like an outside wire, especially if you're doing a big batch of this. Wrap it nice and tight, take a piece of wire, wrap it around, and warm it up really gently. And you can see it kind of relax.
Mhm.
And if you don't trust that, use a big Sharpie marker, a black Sharpie marker, because the carbon that's in the ink of the Sharpie marker
Mhm.
burns off just slightly below
Okay.
the temperature of the ink burns off just slightly below the temperature of the annealing point of the fine silver. So it just gives you a way to sort of tell,
Like
when to
very.
be careful. Yeah.
When you
So
were
when you
saying
see it
wrap
completely
it
disappear.
into a coil, you're
Mhm.
you're wrapping it into a coil just so that you have a thicker mass so that it's less
Yeah.
likely to melt.
Yeah, anytime you're working with like any kind of wire, if I was working with round or square wire or whatever, you want to wrap it nice and tight. And then you can take even another wire and wrap around it to hold it together. Um, that will help the heat dissipate a little more evenly and even out a little more evenly. And if you melt a little piece of the outside wire, and this is a trick I learned from Lori Talcott when she's doing her filigree, even if you melt a little piece of the outside wire, your inside wire should be fine. So
Because she
it's,
wraps, that's right. She wraps her filigree wire with a little piece of the same wire.
yeah, a little extra piece of wire, separate piece of wire. So it's taking this and then wrapping it. Once it gets up to the point, if you're melting a piece of wire frayed on the end, you know that you're pretty close to your melting temperature.
Mhm.
But it gives it a little more, a little more bulk, easier for the heat to sort of, work its way through the entire thing. But if I usually what I'll do is just take it kind of, like this and
Mhm.
just warm it gently and I can see it relax. And the minute I see it relax, I'm done.
Mhm.
So that's just because um, it's already dead soft.
Mhm.
So at that point, it's just easy to touch that up. But that is my little tip for
The spirograph tip, I'm telling you, it's
right.
worth the price of the class.
Well, and you can use not just making little jump rings for that, but you can use washers.
Mhm.
So if you've got tiny little washers that you've used from or collected from whatever, little brass washers, little steel washers. If it's a bigger piece, washers work great. If you've got something that's like you can make little plastic washers. It doesn't matter, what it
It doesn't have to
is.
be metal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, but that stuff you can, hole punch out something and run it around the inside, whatever your, size needs to be. That just makes it really easy just to sort of zip all the way around.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it.
Yay. Yeah. But little washers, little jump rings, and just make them the width that you want the dimension of your little seat to be. And there you go. So you might have like one on one on the inside, a really narrow one on the inside, a wide one on the outside, and so you can switch it up and have a little collection of jump rings and washers that are just for that if you're doing a lot of bezels. And there you go. That's my tool tip today for bezels. Yeah. Are there any questions in the
I
peanut
was
gallery?
just looking to see. Wendy Shaw says totally brilliant.
Thank you,
Valerie
Wendy.
Counterway says, hey, foxes, and hey, back,
Yeah,
Valerie.
yeah. Actually, the reason I'm doing this as a tooltip is because Valerie had mentioned previously that she was like, "What?" So yeah, I was like, "Oh yeah, I've used that off and on for years." So, but yeah, it is a fun tip. And jump rings or washers work great. So yeah,
That's awesome. I love the idea of using a plastic washer too, or rubber
yeah.
washer. I guess rubber, you want something that isn't going to compress, right? So,
Well, and you want something that's not going to like spring, compress,
right,
bounce back,
right.
skip, grab. Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
anything that's
Cat
going to
fur,
be
cat
yeah,
fur on my face.
yeah. So anything that's like a plastic or metal is going to work pretty well. But yeah, I mean, we always have like I always have extra jump rings around the studio. So for really small bezels, use a small jump ring. If you've got a bigger bezel and you need a bigger plate on the inside, or you're trying to trace around a form, that can work really well using the washer or the jump ring
And you
aspect.
you don't bother soldering your jump ring. You just close it, right? It's just
Yeah, you don't need it to be. Yeah, you totally don't need it
you
to
need
be
it to be
soldered.
flat. So like a normal jump ring is like or, it's opened a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe.
I'll close it. I'll
Right.
close it so
Right.
it's
Oh,
flat.
it's
Yeah.
flat. Yeah. So you want
Yeah.
it flat. But
Yeah.
other than that, that's the only thing you have to do to it is close the jump ring.
Right. Right. And if you go to like any little hardware store, and sometimes you can get like from small parts places, like
Mhm.
model
Mhm.
places, you can get like little brass washers, or old clocks, old watches, have little washers in them that can be really helpful. So, just kind of keep your eye out for stuff like that. And, just something that can roll around the inside of your bezel, and
Pyrograph.
you have those little gears on the inside, and you just, yeah. So your bezel goes like this all the way around.
Which would be kind of cool if it was, doing it the way you're doing something you wanted
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it just works really well. So there you go. That's my tip for making bezels easy. Anneal your bezel, and it makes it a far more compliant, wonderful thing. And what's your favorite bezel tool, Julia? It's yours.
My favorite bezel tool for
Bezel setting tool. Yeah.
bezel setting tool.
Your
Um,
go-to.
I actually have a piece of antler, which works
Oh,
well because it's got enough tooth to it. The surface of the antler is a little bit uh, grippy,
mhm.
but it's always going to be softer than the metal.
Right,
So
right.
it's really good for like pushing over the metal without any marks.
Yeah. I've got yeah, Chris Anderson makes beautiful antler burnishers. They're so lovely. Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to say I really love my agate burnisher
Mm-hmm.
a lot. That's one of my
Those ones you
go-tos.
got, the inexpensive ones you got, I got a set of those. Yeah.
And I've got like, well, this thing from
Mm-hmm.
Bill Dawson. So it's carnelian.
Ooh, that's very nice.
It's a carnelian bead, and he whittled down a handle and put a little brass tube on there to hold it. So, I mean, this is just, yeah, real simple, but lovely again in its simplicity. The other thing I'll show you, here's a tip. Let me show you this. Let me switch my camera and I will show you. Um, and you can spotlight this if you like, are
There we go.
like pipe reamers, these guys. And
Oh
these
yeah,
are fantastic
deburring tools. That's a
deburring tools.
deburring
Yeah.
tool.
And they're
Mhm.
usually used for like pipe deburring. Let me see if I can
Mhm.
focus in a
For
little bit better here. There we go.
copper plumbing pipe.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing about these is they're used a lot for like deburring like the inside of rings. They're great for wax carving, but for doing the inside of a bezel,
Oh, nice.
right? So it just cleans up that inside edge really quickly. So if you need to shave it down, you can kind of, go at it from one side, but it'll kind of roll it on the inside and out and shine it up.
Nice.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I like this one. It came with a couple of different sizes, which I really like. So that way that little window on the back looks really great.
Even if it is uneven.
Yeah, even if it is uneven. Exactly. So, yeah, on my bigger one, yes. So, but it really kind of like deburrs it, rounds it out, and just gives it a little more
Lighten it up a
flash
little bit.
on those edges. But anyway, but that's another great little
Another
tool.
efficient and elegant solution for achieving,
Mhm.
quickly and accurately a nice result.
Whee! So yeah, these are great for rings especially. So if you're trying to get like a comfort fit
Mm-hmm.
on a ring. But yeah, there you go. All right, my friends. We've got a bunch of fun classes coming up.
We can
Do
still
check
see.
them out.
There we go.
We've got lots of cool classes coming up. We've got a class with Jeff DeBoer. We've got a bunch of stone setting classes, some good chain making classes. So do check out all of our classes coming up at littlemetalfoxes.com. And press the like button and say hi and let us know if you've got any tips that you really like. Yeah, hit that like button. What? Wendy, Valerie, hit that like button.
I'm sure
And
Wendy and Valerie have already hit the like button. Wendy says, Valerie says, didn't think of that. Cool. I'm assuming she's talking about the deburring tool.
oh,
Wendy Shaw, I just emailed Chris because I can't figure out how to use the soldering jig. Not sure he's back from Tucson.
which soldering jig, Wendy? Because I have a bunch of them here that I just used yesterday. Is it the one for stone setting? Because I'm going to be doing that in the prong setting class coming up.
I don't know. Wendy, are you still there?
Maybe.
She's typing.
Yeah. She
typing.
did.
Valerie says I did.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure what Valerie did. Oh, wait, what did you ask Valerie that she's saying I did too?
Uh,
I don't know. Something about
anyway,
the class. Anyway.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so we've got the wire prong class coming up, and I do a lot of alternative like wire settings that I use for lots of different reasons. And the one that has the droop,
Yes, that's what she said. Droop? What do
droop.
you mean by droop?
You mean the titanium
Oh,
frames?
washer slide over. Oh. I think she means the lion claw.
Oh,
I think is that the one you're talking about? Is it I have
that's
one.
the lion claw.
You have, let's see.
That one. So
Yeah.
it's the
So the washers can, because it has washers on it that can slide up and down to give extra weight.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Is that
yeah.
what you're talking about, Wendy?
Is it this one? The washer slide over?
I don't know.
On the
Yes.
troops. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I will show you exactly what this is for. Let me switch my camera over here again. Here we go. Okay. So the lion's claw, there's also I'll use the smaller ones because the little ones are kind of nice for smaller stuff. So if I was doing something that I needed to kind of hold it still or weight it down, if I was doing something like sweat soldering, especially, um,
Hmm.
let's say I had to um, like I wanted to position this a certain way and it wants to spin or something. This is especially good for like domes on a flat surface because the point is just enough to kind of weight it down. So when you're soldering, everything just sort of holds together. And the washers can just, add a little bit more weight when you need it. That's all they're for. But you can actually change the point on this to make it using titanium wire that he includes to shape it in all kinds of ways.
So it
So
doesn't have to be a point. You could make like a
yeah,
little L
yeah, you can make
shape
loops and
or
all kinds of little feet
right.
and things like that to hold it. But yeah, the little washers are great for holding stuff down right where you want them. So Simon, bye bye. Thank you for the warning. Um, but yeah, so if you're trying to sort of get something located and it's just not doing it for you, the nice thing about the smaller versions of this is you get two of them. So if you're trying to sort of locate it, like so, you can use, two of them to kind of balance it out and hold it where you want it
Hmm.
instead of just one. Um,
Can you
and
show us
there's,
kind of from the side how that looks
oh yeah,
with the weights, with the thing?
let's see if I can get that like that. There we go. Let me focus that in right there. Yeah. So if you've got, kind of it poked on the surface
Hmm.
and weighting it like that, it kind of weights it down. So the washers slide over and just kind of give it a little bit of extra weight.
Hmm.
So yeah, so if I was doing something where I've got, um, you know, something I'm trying to solder in a specific place and it's shifting around, I can use that to kind of keep it from like pushing away.
Wendy
Um,
says she can't get the Allen screw to move. She gets to
oh, this one, that one.
put a pin in there.
Yeah, mine's gotten a little rusted. Yeah, but this should unscrew. If yours is like mine, if it's a little rusted, give it a shot of like WD-40, and then you should be able to undo the hex nut. And of course, it's right to tight, left to loose. Um, and the pin, I know he has the different tips you can put in there, and this is basically just like a nail.
Right.
Uh,
I was going to say that one looks like just a regular nail.
Yeah, it's just a regular nail,
It
and you can
also works
change the
fine.
tip on that. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So, but yeah, you can make a little flat foot with it. You can make all kinds of different shapes and insert those. And the washers are just to give it a little more weight on this end. So if you want to push down harder, you add more weight for something where you're not concerned as much about it. You can sort of take that away, right?
right.
So there
Right.
you go. It's just an extra finger to help hold something down while you're soldering,
Right.
right?
And it's a tool for the purpose of doing that. Oh, do the little ones? Can you change the pin on the little one?
No, these are all one claw. Yeah,
Okay.
they're all one claw. They're just like a teeny tiny version of the big one.
Okay.
That's just
The little washer that's there is really just to keep the other washers from falling onto your work.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the nice thing is that this is not a huge heat sink. Sometimes, tweezers sometimes can get in the way or they're a little too big for what you need. And if you're, working on something where you're kind of like, oh, let's see, let me grab something.
When she has the nail, so she must have the bigger one, which makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So with this,
The
if
knot
I'm,
ring. I haven't taught that for a while.
yeah, yeah. So I might be, trying to hold something or position something. So these can kind of help like cinch it down. On the solder brick too, these bite in a little bit better.
Because they're pointier.
Yeah. So they have like a little more, bite to them. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're pushing down a couple of these, into the surface,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you
Something to push against.
something to push against. Yeah.
Right.
So if I've got something that I'm kind of like, oh, I need to kind of like push up against this,
Mm-hmm.
that gives me a little more.
Go anywhere,
Yeah.
but it's also not got so much metal that it's
Right.
be a
Right.
thing, nor is it something where you've pinned it down and now you have to pull the pins out to get your piece off.
Right. Right. So for something like this, I may just need, to have that at a point where I'm going to solder on,
A
another
basil or a jump ring or something.
another thing. Yeah, and I have to kind of push against it. And if I do, this is going to slide. So having something like that that just gives it a little more resistance can help.
Yeah.
Um, or
I
if
mean,
I'm trying to like solder something like down, I can use it for that as well. And you can see there's like minimal contact, which is nice. So it's not going to add, the heat sink thing, and it's also not going to add a ton of weight or pressure or footprint if something like solder gets on there. So
Wendy's asking, is there a secret to soldering shibuishi to silver?
no,
No, you just solder it down. What shibuishi is seven
Shibuchi is yeah, it's just a basically a
silver
uh,
copper alloy.
silver copper alloy. Yeah,
It's like 75% silver and 25% copper, or is it the other way around?
yeah. The it's 25% copper, 70%, or like, yeah, 75% silver. It's 1 to 4 is the traditional recipe for it, but it can be also a um, varying degrees. So it might be more or less copper
Mm-hmm.
to silver ratio. There you go. Turn that phone off, Julia.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that that was on. Oops,
Hi.
stop
So
video. There we go.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, if you've got Shibuichi to silver, just flux. Yeah, make sure you're fluxing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just love the spelling of what's the that's Shakudo is the
Don't you
gold.
just love the spelling? What's the copper and gold one? Yeah, Shakudo's the copper and
Yeah.
gold one. Um, and Pamela Gorman says, lol, they are great until you finish your piece and go to pick it up to quench, and the weighted arm comes with it.
Yeah. If you've got one of the ways to avoid that is to get a little bit of yellow ochre or something on the tip of that. But once you use it a couple of times and it's got some oxides on there, it's less likely to solder to your other points. But you can put, yeah, a little yellow ochre on the tip and
You
that'll
could
keep
just
it
dip
just
it
fine.
in the like just smear it into the mud,
Oh, yeah.
the soldering clay, the hold it
Soldering clay, yeah.
into the
White out,
masking mud. Yeah.
masking mud, yeah, whatever, slip. Yeah, I usually have a little bit of the yellow ochre in the studio, but you can get, yeah, all kinds of things that are like a resist for the solder that'll keep
I mean,
that from happening.
normally, if you just heat if you have a fresh pin,
Yeah,
you just heat it up so you get a little bit of oxides on it. That's usually enough.
dirty, grease it up, dirty it up.
Yeah. Put a little, even a little oil
Yeah,
would solve that problem. If it gets too hot, it'll smoke a little bit, but it won't. It'll impede the solder, which is really all that matters.
yeah. And if you're overheating the piece and the solder's like onto the steel, stop it. don't do that.
But you're
Yeah.
saying if you're melting the piece and it's like onto the steel, yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Indicated.
But yeah, if you're using it kind of like a solder pick and using, especially if you've got the titanium point in there, it shouldn't stick and cause problems like that. So
But
anyway,
even titanium can. I mean, things can stick. And sometimes, actually, to be fair, sometimes it's the flux because the flux has melted and the
right,
flux is like a glue, right? And
right,
so if you don't want to put it in your pickle pot because you don't want to put the whole thing in there because there's steel, usually you can just kind of let it air cool and just crack it off or quench it and then crack it off.
right.
Or, worst case scenario, you can put it in warm water and warm water will eventually dissolve the flux. It just takes longer.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you don't want to put it in your pickle pot because you don't want steel in your pickle pot, you can always use warm water.
yeah,
But generally, I find, a little bit of quench it first so you're not trying to hold something hot. And then a little brute force, just like snap
yeah,
it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
That
So,
usually doesn't. So
well,
yeah,
this was
good
good.
luck with that.
We answered some questions. And
Yeah,
Jeff, Pamela says, you don't do that but once. I'm assuming she means grab the hot thing.
yes,
We've all been there.
yeah,
So, yeah. So I think we got
exactly.
everybody's questions answered.
Yeah, yeah. There's
And
only one like. Everybody hit the like button. Yay.
like
And
it, share it,
yeah.
subscribe.
And
Guys,
make sure you like follow us, and that way you know when we are live on YouTube, and check out all the other tool tips that we've got here. We've got a bunch coming up that are going to be really good. Yeah, we appreciate you sticking with us and watching our videos, and let us know if you have a back to the bezel thing. If you have a way that you like doing like your spacing for your bezel, let us know what it is. Type it in the comments below. And yeah, we love to see that. What's your favorite go-to bezel tool? So yeah,
exactly.
let us
All
know.
right.
All right, everybody.
Well, thank
Thanks. We'll
you.
see you next week.